Hi everyone, my name is Rishiraj Shaharoy. I'm from the Max Planck Institute for Informatics in Saarbrücken in Germany. And in this talk, I will discuss our paper on deriving search query logs from community question answering forums. This is joint work with Ashia Biega and Jana Schmidt. So user-specific search histories are vital for promoting research in privacy and personalization in information retrieval. For obvious privacy reasons, commercial search engines like Bing or Google do not release such query histories. A key idea in this paper is that community question answering platforms like StackExchange and Quora provide a viable alternative for deriving such query logs. And they also contain these CQA forums also contain information needs that users typically translate to web search queries issued to a search engine. This brings us to the underlying goal of this study to understand query formulation, which is an ubiquitous phenomenon but not well understood. And in this process, we want to release a useful resource to the community. In this work, we focus on the StackExchange platform that contain many necessary desiderata for creating a resource for the form we need and to understand query formulation. It has more than 150 topically diverse subforums, and a key utility here is that user IDs are shared across these subforums. So if a user asks a question in football, the same user asks a question on politics, we can stitch the two questions by their ID to create detailed user profiles. And the StackExchange contains valuable signals like accepted answers and related and duplicate questions. Something that facilitates the use of StackExchange here is that its terms of service allow reuse of data for research purposes, so no privacy concerns. And it also makes curated dumps regularly available on this website. However, questions here are in verbose natural language. So obviously, this brings us to the main contribution here is that we conducted a large-scale crowdsourced study for converting natural language questions to search queries over Amazon Mechanical Turk. And in the process, we made several insights behind query formulation, and this could drive strategies for automatic conversion at scale. We released a resource with 7,000 question query pairs spanning 50 domains, and this is available at this link down here. So for setting up our user study, we first filtered certain so-called valid subforums for this study from StackExchange and sampled a number of questions from each of these subforums. The task obviously is to convert a natural language question to a web search query. And for this, we recruited 100 Amazon Mechanical Turk masters with greater than 95% success rate. To capture user-specific querying behavior, we asked each Turker to convert 50 questions in one HIT or human intelligence task, unit of task in AMT. They received $9 an hour and were allotted 3 hours to complete this task. We also conducted a pilot study to validate that the setup works smoothly. And then only with these insights from the pilot, we conducted the main study. The main study resulted in 5,000 question query pairs, where the mean query length was about 6 words, and this shows the complexity of the information needs. We kept guidelines to a minimum to avoid biases towards specific types of queries, and it was loosely formulated as to build search queries aimed at retrieving equivalent information as the source question from a web search engine. Here are the exact guidelines for your record. All these slides will be on our website for your future reference. And here's an example that we showed to the Turkers. So here's the question. This year travel is the subforum name. How do I cancel a Schengen visa? This is the title, and this is the body here. An acceptable query was shown to them along with where in the question this part derived from. On this data, we performed a deep analysis, and the goal of this analysis was to discriminate between words that are selected for querying and those that are not. And this was a three-pronged approach in terms of studying term position, term parts of speech, and term frequency. And again, details are in our paper, but we had promising insights for methods aimed at predicting query words. We also conducted 2 separate control studies that resulted in 2,000 more question query pairs, and this was conducted to check for spam and the so-called correctness of our annotations. And the first one was very interesting for title position bias, where the key questions that we investigated was, are Turkers biased by the title? Do they even look beyond the title in formulating their queries? And the second control study was to study inter-annotator agreement, which is often mandatory in these kinds of annotation tasks, even though note here that there's no valid query that these users must agree upon. The bottom line from these control studies was that our guidelines were sufficient and the AMT master workers did the desired task faithfully. So this brings us to the summary and our future work for this project. The key contribution is that we released 7,000 question query pairs for building query generative models, and in the process derived key insights explaining query formulation. The natural next steps are to use answers as pseudo-relevant documents, pool them for a corpus, and use other signals to derive relevance assessments. The key takeaway from our project is summarized in the last 2 lines here, is that community question answering forums like StackExchange provides a rich resource for simulating query logs, and such logs with detailed user profiles can really boost information retrieval research on privacy and personalization. So that's it from me. Thank you very much.